Welcome to the XY Advisor podcast. To join a global community of financial advisors sharing and learning with one another to drive the positive evolution of financial advice, head to xyadvisor.com. Both Zurich and Onepath life insurance offerings deliver the broadest range of offerings in the market with a combined 4 distinct solutions on offer to better serve all Australians. At Zurich and Onepath, we believe in the value of advice and the professionals who provide it. This means investing in more ways to help your clients and making it easier for you to do business with us. To find out more about how we can help you and your clients, contact your Zurich and Onepath Life or Zurich Investments representative today. G'day, Clayton here from XY Advisor. Thanks for joining us today. Got a really special guest. We have Csilla, who is XY is actually head of operations, also university lecturer. And but you originally came from financial planning and then got into the education after doing a master's, correct? That's the story?
That's right. I finished my master's at Western Sydney University. And I mentioned to my lecturers at the time that I would be interested in teaching. And they said, "Are you serious?" I said, yeah. So I got into the university lecturing while I was still working in financial planning. I started off with some undergraduate courses. And I was sort of asked at the same time, would you consider doing a PhD? And I said, not while I'm still working in financial planning. So it must have been, I don't know, they call it serendipity, or was meant to happen.
Right.
I got very, very ill a couple of years ago and ended up having to leave my job in financial planning and was just doing the teaching on the side and applied to Western Sydney University to do a Master of Philosophy and got in.
Wow.
So now I'm teaching and studying again.
Well, I mean, look, from where we're seated, especially from XY's point of view, you bring a real sort of empirical rigor to the conversations that we have internally and also to the work that we produce externally. And, you know, when we were talking about putting together this 10-part series on mental health, you said, hey, look, you know, I've got some personal experiences in this side of things and also some academia on that side of things. And you sort of put your hand up and you said, actually, I wouldn't mind having a chat on the podcast series. And I thought, that is sensational. It's a really good idea. And on top of helping us bring in some great guests that you've helped line up, you know, we get the chance to discuss mental health recovery, resilience, and from an advisor's point of view, how they can help clients. And I think that's a really interesting thing because I believe it was either your thesis or you did a large piece of work on empathy, financial planners and empathy. And I thought that was a really interesting subject matter. I thought that would be very good to sort of discuss this topic because a lot of advisors out there now have clients who are on claim for mental health issues. And then it becomes this really weird scenario where, well, is it in the best interest of the client to stay on claim, or is it the best interest of the client to help them get back up on their feet, to become a productive member of society and to sort of not spiral down further and further into mental health problems? Because honestly, like a lot of times if someone's getting paid more money to sit at home than they would at work, then there's a very easy argument to say, well, actually, it's in your best interest to stay at home sitting on the couch and not do anything with your life. But that's not really taking into a full consideration. From where you're seated, what do you think an advisor can do to help their clients with empathy, to get them back out there, to start living their life, to, you know, help them become a productive member of society again?
Well, look, I can speak to my own experience and how mental health has made me feel, but also to what I am studying in terms of my hopefully soon to be PhD. So I've looked a lot at the whole empathy thing and how we can, feel within ourselves and so forth. And it hasn't been an easy road, because I've had some very bad issues. And I agree with you in that I think that people need to be productive members of society, because it gives us something to strive for. It gives us a goal to look at. And I know with me, that's exactly what's happened. I went from doctor to doctor to doctor, and they were all telling me things that I didn't want to hear. And basically I was at a point where, yes, I was doing my teaching and I was able to do it, but I would sit down on the couch and fall asleep for a couple of hours, and have rests in between all my work, because I was just feeling so ill. And I know for me, that was making me feel worse. It was making me feel worth less, and it was making me feel like I didn't want to get out of bed every day, particularly when they tried to put me on medications. So I sort of took my health into my own hands. I spoke to a lot of good friends. They're also colleagues in financial planning and in academia, in financial planning academia. And they supported me through this, which was a big thing. And I ended up finding out that my issues are probably something that I can't ever resolve, but I can control. And now that my pain is more under control and I have dealt with that part, I've come out of it with the whole sense that I do have a purpose. And my purpose is to, do this thesis and impart on people that there is value to their lives, and we should all be contributing members of society. And what I've seen during COVID-19 in particular is all the even Scott Morrison said it, everyone is an essential worker if you have a job. I mean, that's all we need to think about. We're all essential. We all need to be contributing. It's great being a member of society. It contributes to knowledge.
Yeah. And can you duck into because we spoke about purpose when we met, and your purpose really aligned with why we were building XY. And that was not like you spoke a lot about helping essentially drive the positive evolution of financial advice. That's sort of close to what it is that you want to achieve in your professional sense. What if, and this is like, answer me this, let's say you had really, really good income protection, right? And you could have gone on claim. This is in a theoretical situation. Let's say you could have gone on claim and stayed on claim for the rest of your life. Do you think that you would have gotten out of bed and got back to work and become, taking on this role at XY, that's not an easy role, right? And it's only just begun. Like realistically, we expect over time this to grow into a bigger role.
Yep.
And you put your hand up and you said, actually, we made it very difficult to go for this role, right? I'm sure you remember.
Yep.
We didn't make it easy, and you were the only one that completed the whole job application. And then we got to meet and we got to chat, and I found your dedication, I guess, to not just the profession of financial planning, but just your resilience in general, to be, a really positive attribute of your personality. Do you feel like you've built this over the course of your own situation? And do you think if you had been given all the benefits of an insurance payout, do you think you would have done that?
Look, I actually can't get IP insurance because of the issues that I have. But if theoretically I had, yes, because I don't think I could sit there and just receive money and not get out of bed and not have something to do. For me, it would be completely boring, even with all the pain that I'm sometimes in. I always said to my husband, I said, I would always do something, even if that was just being able to study. I said to him, you know, I would go and do a PhD, or I'd go and do a counselling course or a psychology course or something, even try to use that to then work, because to me, unless I'm working, there's not really much of a point. You know, it's sitting around the house watching Netflix all day. Yes, you do that once in a while, but not on an ongoing basis at all. No.
Yeah. And in terms of a financial planner and in terms of your study that you've done, what effects does an advisor with, let's call it, a high level of empathy, what benefits does that provide to clients?
Well, I think being able to understand how someone feels, to be able to come up with options for people, to be able to provide them with something other than just, yes, it's going to be okay. I think having that sort of high level of thinking behind everything, of being able to see the situation unfold. I mean, you yourself do it when you ask questions. It's really important, and I think clients do appreciate it. And I've seen my previous bosses, and I've seen my colleagues and friends who are in the emerging profession do that.
Yeah. It's a huge part of the job. Can you walk us through that study in a little bit of detail? What was the purpose of it?
So my study, or just in general?
No, specifically yours.
Okay, well, we're still building it, but it sort of came off the back of me, was my experience, because I thought, well, what subject can I do a whole, you know, however many 100 pages on? And my father, a long time ago, I was an adult when he did this. He I don't know whether they say committed suicide, killed himself. I don't know how to say it. I don't know the right words. And I sort of thought to myself, I always wanted to know the stuff behind that. And I sort of left it, you know, never really thought about it. And I know when I talk to people about this topic, they get really uncomfortable and they don't know what to say. And it's like, well, what do you say? You can't say anything. And that's where it sort of came from, in that people don't know how to address uncomfortable issues. And I remember just about 3 years ago, I went to see a lady called Amy Florian. And she deals a lot with grief and how financial advisors can talk to people who are going through grief. And I thought, oh, that would be a great thesis. So I put in my application to do it on grief. And it's kind of evolved over time, because the main thing that I was really looking at was, and this is still being nutted out with my supervisors, is how we can help financial planners use their empathy and so forth, and apply our new code of ethics in particular, because ethics and empathy, I think, go together hand in hand.
Interesting. What is your early conclusion?
My early conclusion, look, it's very early on, and I think that, look, opinion-wise, I think the financial planners have been given this code of ethics. They've been told they have to, they've been professionalised, and it's all happened. It's all happened very quickly, in that it's boom, 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 boom. But it's been coming on for years and years and years. So in that respect, it hasn't been something they didn't see coming. But I think it's really important for them to know how to use this code of ethics to look at a situation and not just see the numbers and not just see the risk profile, they have to see what's behind the risk profile. And yes, to a certain extent, it's behavioral finance and psychology and all that sort of thing, which is kind of where my thesis will overlap. But, there's also how to read a situation. And the comparison I can make is I say to students, when someone asks you a question, particularly if they're asking you a question about how to write an essay for your degree, think about what it is that they're trying to ask you. So I just think, what is the client trying to tell us, and how can we apply that code of ethics, and why does it apply?
Yeah, it's a huge topic, and one that I'm only starting to get my head around. In terms of your view of where financial advice is headed, do you see it just going further and further down the path of, because you're actually the lecturer that's bringing in the next generation of advisors. Let's be very clear that basically you are single-handedly, Csilla, responsible for the survival of this profession. No, I'm completely joking, but you're obviously seeing the people that are coming through, right? What's kind of interesting is I had a conversation. It's actually a podcast. It'll be out by the time this is released. The Professional Independent Financial Advisor Association, PIFA. The president there is a guy named Daniel, and he has done all the work required, check this, to get the Australian Professional Council, and this is the Council of Australia that decides what job is a profession or not, and he has done the work to get financial planning to become a profession. Mm-hmm. So now he's submitted like 1,000 pages, and it's almost ticked over. By the next couple of months, he's very confident that his little association, currently little association, will be the first professionals. And what does it mean to become a professional? It means limited liability, right? So reduction in professional indemnity costs is one of many benefits. But being able to call yourself a professional is literally just on the horizon, which I'm so happy to hear. Now, in terms of seeing new students come through financial planning, what are their expectations? What are you noticing in terms of what the next generation of financial planners look like, in terms of the way that they speak, talk, the way that they think about financial planning? And is it different to your experience when you were working in a financial planning office?
Okay, well, when I started working with Wayne about 7 years ago, when I first came into financial planning, he was always telling me, don't look at the product, look at the strategy, and go and work out what you want to do. Or what we should do, basically, because we would look at the client situation. And that's I've sort of carried that with me, and always said to the students, financial planning isn't, yes, it's about the numbers, it's about cash flow, it's about and all the bread and butter stuff. But we have to be able to read the client situation, because we have to be able to pick, for instance, the risk that the client could have an issue with one part of insurance, for example. But where did that risk come from? You look back over their family. And if we've done our job properly, I say to the students, if we've done our job properly, we've looked back, we've had the conversation with them, we know all about them. We take that information and we can go, okay, well, you're going to have a problem with this, this, and this because of such and such over here. And I always tell them, I say, just because I say something, it doesn't mean that you've got to take it on board. You should research it and look behind it and see what someone else says, because what I say might not necessarily be what someone else has said. So my point there is, we have to research what we're actually doing to make sure that if there's more than one opinion on it, we need to check that we are doing the right thing and not just regurgitating the textbook, for example.
Awesome. What would you say are some really good sources for research?
At which level? financial planner level or student level?
I'd say financial planner. What should financial planners be reading to question what it is that they're doing and ensuring that they're doing it in the best way possible?
Look, for me, it's been really hard for me because I can read a technical thing. I can read, the financial planning textbooks and understand it. But with theoretical stuff, that's been really hard for me. I think it's important that they read widely, that they read across industries and professions, and that they don't just take someone's word for it. They question what that person is saying. If they read an article and something doesn't look right, go and have a look at something else. Don't just take that person's word for it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One of the things that I'm thinking of in terms of, the mental health of clients, right? So let's say you got an advisor out there, you got a bunch of clients, and let's say one of them has gone through a traumatic experience, right? What can an advisor do, right? Because the advisor sits in that really strange position between accountant and psychologist. Like it's a very, it's sort of the melding of both of those skill sets. And a lot of people don't want to see a psychologist, and a lot of people want to talk to a financial planner. I found as a financial planner, I would knew more about my clients than their own families.
Mm-hmm.
What are some talking points? What are some skills? What are the types of things advisors can be doing to have better conversations with their clients who have gone through traumatic events?
So I guess we always think that we're going to ask the wrong questions. I myself will have conversations with people and just try and ask them, about their family, about their lives, about their interests, and just try and relate something that I've experienced to their interests, because it may not be that your interests actually align with everyone. So it's going to happen, but I would always try and pick something that does align. As an example, my husband is a blue collar worker. He's a mechanic. I don't really know much about fixing a car, but I'll engage him sometimes and I'll ask him a question. How does this work, or how does that work? I mean, there'll be times when I tune out and so forth, but at least I ask him the question. Now, he does the same with me. He doesn't know much about financial planning, but I've educated him enough to be able to ask the right questions. So I think it goes both ways. The financial planner has to ask questions that interest a client, as well as the other way around. And I think that will build the relationship. The one thing that I always try and hammer into the students, and I think that it's really important, especially from a compliance side, but it's also important from memory side, because I have lapses in memory more than I used to. We all do as we get older. It's important to make the file notes, because the file notes can make or break the relationship. And having those on file and looking at those before you talk to the client to remind yourself of what you spoke about before, and bring up those topics, because you're not going to remember everything. And if you bring up those topics and you constantly build on it, and you constantly build on your database and you write these notes, that will help you to have a conversation with the client that's important to them and address an issue that's important to them.
And then when let's say it's a traumatic event, how do you, as an advisor, how do you tackle that?
You just do. I think it's something that you just have to have those difficult conversations. It may involve a little bit of training. It may need to be more inbuilt into our degrees, or as additional training. I don't know. I mean, that's something that I have been thinking about a lot. And is it something that I should address in my thesis? Do we need more training to have the hard conversations? I think possibly we do.
I definitely say we do. In terms of like the role that psychology plays in financial services, like coaching, that life planning, that whole emotional piece, advisors are flying blind when they walk in to the office. I think without a doubt that, so for example, Ray Jaramis, one of the co-founders here at XY, he did a psychology degree. Like that's what his degree was in, to become and he was already a financial planner. When he started his degree, he thought, well, what am I going to study to become a better financial planner? And he chose to study psychology. I think it's a really overlooked aspect of the education. So if you have any sway whatsoever as to the curriculum in financial planning, oh my goodness, we should be doing whatever we can to help get those soft skills involved in the production of the next generation of financial planners, because it's such a big deal. Like learning how to talk to clients that have mental health problems is something that learning how to take, file notes, for example, we were talking about that earlier, or, go through their cash flow. These skill sets which are really sort of rational, they don't set the advisor up for success. It's a whole spectrum of talents that's required to do this job really well. And it's oftentimes that you realize that when it's a little bit too late, where you're stuck in the meeting and you haven't been an advisor very long, and all of a sudden you're talking about these really important topics and you just don't know how to deal with them. So for example, when I had clients who would have a claim for insurance, for me, it was just, I was focused on one thing, and that was making sure that they got as much of the money as possible, if not all of it. And you would strongly suspect that it would be all of it. And I kind of saw that as my job. And the older I've become, although I'm not an advisor anymore, I often think, well, I probably should have done a bit more work. I probably should have done more follow-up with them, because in a lot of ways I felt like I had achieved the best outcome monetarily for them, but I didn't achieve the best outcome for them in terms of their entire life. And that's the kind of questions that advisors need to be asking themselves early on, right? Because it's not just we know that financial planning is not just a monetary thing. It's also an emotional thing. And why would a claim on insurance be any different? Why do we see our job as just getting the money, but not? Well, no, I'm sure that there are advisors out there that do think about this, but it's not really the thing that we talk about. Like, I've never heard an advisor say, I worked really hard with my client to get them off claim. Like I've never heard an advisor say that. I've never heard them say, after 6 months of after burnout, and we did a really good job of claiming on their on their insurance. After 6 months, we decided it was actually better for them to get off the income protection and get back to work and become a productive member of society. I've never heard an advisor talk about that, and that's weird. It's really weird, because if we're really dealing with the best interest of the client, then the best interest for the client a lot of the times, especially in a mental health situation, should be to get off claim as quickly as possible. Not the pressure of that, but it should be a goal. That should be something that we're working towards, where it's like getting them off the couch, away from Netflix, getting them back into their life, because it's not going to be enjoyable. And know that from a whole list of reasons why we know that that's not going to be enjoyable. But if they're making less money by going back to work, it's going to be a really weird argument, because then are you breaking the law? Are you breaking best interest duty to recommend to your client to reduce their income? Holy damn, right? So it's a really interesting scenario. And one that, it's going to take, just even starting the conversations is a great place to begin. Csilla, thank you so much in terms of coming on and sharing with us your experience and also your education. Is there anything that you'd like to leave with advisors to think about, whether it's new advisors to the industry or ones that have been around for the last 40 years? Is there something in terms of, resilience and empathy that, you'd like to share?
I think we just need to think about, okay, the situation now is terrible. It's something that, and I'm sick of the overused words, unprecedented times. So I'm not gonna say it about this, but this situation, I think, has made a lot of people think differently about mental health, about how we treat each other. And I hope that we can use our experience during this time to, I suppose everybody's saying be kinder. I just think more along the lines of not just be kinder to ourselves, but be kinder to everyone, animals, people, be better at our jobs just by going out there and looking behind everything, and finding our purpose and making sure that purpose is to help other people in society, whether that's taking on a psychology degree, whether it's taking on a couple of extra courses, whether it's spending a little bit of time helping a friend with their study, with their lives. I hope that we can do that both as new advisors and as emerging advisors.
Thank you. It's really nice. It's great to have you on the team, I've got to say. And looking forward to seeing what we do in the near and long-term future. All right, Csilla, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.